Hello everyone, and thanks once again for joining us for Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Well, the second in a series of 3 storms rolling through again during the overnight period last night and early this morning brought strong wind gusts. Turnagain Arm, McHugh Creek peak gust 81 miles per hour. Cold Bay, that actually occurred last evening. They had 75 mile per hour winds. Sparravon in the along the Alaska Range there, eastern Kuskokwim Valley, 74 mile an hour peak gusts, and King Salmon had a peak gust right around 60 miles per hour. And moving on to the hazardous weather graphic, we've got a high wind watch out for the eastern Aleutians, Fox Islands, for tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night for possible winds gusting up to 80 miles an hour. Out of the northwest, that's just a watch, so less of a chance of that happening than if it was a warning, which is pretty imminent. Otherwise, we've got a high wind warning out here for the Alaska Range through the passes, and that's out until midnight tonight for winds gusting to 70 miles per hour. And winter storm warnings continue here for the northern, or actually for the Galena Ambler area for possibly as much as 15 inches of snow. And that's overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, and winter weather advisories for conditions not so severe here for the Seward Peninsula up to Shishmaref, Kotzebue, Selawik Valley, northwest coast areas, and as well as the Arctic coast, and then the eastern north slopes of the eastern Alaska Range here, or eastern Brooks Range, and eastern North Slope, and that's for several more inches of snow with gusty winds, reducing visibilities maybe to a half mile at times in some areas, and winds gusting maybe up to 40 miles per hour. Moving on to satellite imagery, here's that second storm taking a track farther to the east and actually got stronger than the one previous. It is back over in this area now, but this is moving through again quite rapidly. A break behind, you can see some breaks in the clouds, some clearing all the way into Cook Inlet from Kuskokwim Bay and Nunivak Island. Big area of clearing skies here over the Gulf of Alaska, and that front pushing some rather moderate to heavy amounts of precipitation. Nothing unusual for the southeast coast and across the area there. Winds 25 gusting 50 miles an hour ahead of the front, and precipitation amounts anywhere from half an inch to 1.5 inches or so, and some of the mountainous areas had even more than that. So pretty active front pushing in there, but you can see the back edge already approaching the north coast of the Panhandle with clearing back to the west. And then the next storm, big cloud shield with that here coming northward, the low center just coming onto the picture there, strengthening rapidly, and will be quite another storm here as it pulls northward. And again, that will track a little farther to the east here and cut across the Aleutian Range and pass over Igigik, King Salmon, the low center later tonight and early tomorrow. Otherwise, back to the west, just some showery conditions, and then the cold air back farther to the west and extending up across the western Bering into the Russian Far East. Snow all day falling at Shimia, and mostly rain, or rain mixed with snow over at Adak, and then generally a rain pattern, showery though, for the eastern Aleutians, Atka Island, and on up to the Pribilofs. And rolling this again, areas of snow pushing northward, improving slowly, losing the winds you had here with the snow and blowing snow, but still at Point Lay this afternoon here with the front pushing north, conditions improving here to the south, but Point Lay still on the north side there, having quarter-mile visibility, snow and blowing snow with winds gusting 50 miles an hour out of the northeast, and then areas of snow here across the Kobuk Valley, south slopes of the Brooks Range all the way across, lighter over toward this area, dry through the 40-mile country and mid-Tanana Valley. And in this trough coming northward, a few scattered rain showers along that, but nothing heavy or significant, kind of a break here between this system and the next one that's driving northward and deepening quite rapidly. The old low center here kind of holding stationary, but that'll begin to kick off to the east and northeast as this one pulls northward, and that'll allow some of the colder air to come back eastward with it. And probably by tomorrow night, Wednesday, we'll go back into the temperature below freezing pattern and lose the Chinook wind flow we've had. Anyway, the front here coming across the Panhandle tonight, that's way off across British Columbia already, and you start to get rain with the warm front spreading over the area, definitely in the Gulf or North Gulf coast, and along the coast, raining and wind increasing once again. Strong low center down 958 millibars here as it moves into northeast Bristol Bay, and it'll start to pick the winds up again across all of southern Alaska, especially through the mountain passes, and especially along the Alaska Range through the passes. You can see wind gusts similar to what you saw with the last system, which is now, or which by 3 a.m. tomorrow morning, Monday morning, will be up here in a much weakened state right near Kivalina for the center. And snow showers, much lighter winds, Kotzebue Sound, Selawik Valley, snow ending over the Kobuk Valley, but persisting along the southern slopes of the mostly central western Brooks Range area, and maybe some light snow possible central western Arctic coast, but this much weaker feature now. The old low here in the Gulf of Alaska, that's pulling off to the east there, and that's tightening the gradient up pretty good across eventually the eastern Aleutians from Adak. And that's why the high wind warning out tomorrow, otherwise much colder temperatures. Snow showers, Adak and Atka, back to the snow showers through the Pribilofs. And taking a look at Tuesday, this low tracks northward here. Tomorrow, actually, the former low weakens into a trough in this position. The other one tracks north into the interior. So late tonight, early tomorrow morning, or through the morning hour, look for the strongest winds here again across southern Alaska, mainly the mountainous mountain range passes. And rain and snow trending towards snow. Snowfall levels coming down with this one, pulling some pretty good cold air here. The front may bring a band of light snow into the eastern interior, but don't look for too much north of the Alaska Range. And snow and blowing snow with the northwest winds here increase. And then the possible northwest winds there for the eastern Aleutians. But those will begin to diminish in the afternoon. As you can see, that shifts off to the Alaska Peninsula. So colder temperatures, snow, maybe blowing snow, definitely a drop probably into the upper 20s. And a day much like today here for the southeast coast with that next front bringing gusty winds and rain, moderate, possibly heavy at times throughout the day. Lots of snow showers over the Bering Sea in the cold air, north to south flow now on the increase. Outlook for Wednesday, high pressure, weak high pressure builds into the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta area, Kuskokwim Valley. May even clear it out over Cook Inlet. Again, this next low tracks north across western Prince William Sound. Late Tuesday night and early Wednesday, I could bring some snow in across south central Alaska again. Light snow, nothing more than a couple inches, and that'll pull northeastward. Colder air clearing skies follows in behind. Narrow band of snow along the front. Low pressure makes for a snowy day. North slope and Arctic coast. Showery now of rain mixed with snow, or snow for the Panhandle. So an improvement there, and some snow with this trough into Bristol Bay, and a lot of snow showers scattered across the Bering Sea, but winds not all that bad. Even out here in the west, maybe nothing more than gusts 35 miles per hour. Low temperatures tonight, single numbers east side to a little below zero up along the north slope in the Arctic coast. Otherwise, lower 30s again under mild southerly flow, staying above freezing. Some areas here, Kodiak Island up into southern Alaska, Bristol Bay once again. Otherwise, mid-30s here for the eastern Aleutians, drop into the mid-20s out toward the central and west side. Upper 30s near 40 for the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow afternoon, 40 to 45-ish there for the southeast coast. 35 to 40 here, especially early in the day. And mid-30s to 29 at Nunivak Island, and a little below zero on the central Arctic coast. Those following morning, not much change. Either side of zero. Colder definitely back here to the northwest, and along the coast here you can see single numbers coming back in, and then high.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather, lots of IFR here from eastern Norton Sound and inland to about Caltech southward there across Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula area. A little bit of a break here just west of the Pribilof, some more IFR extending down toward Unmak Island, and IFR south of the St. Lawrence Island area, and the southern slopes of the Brooks Range here, wrapping back around the western central Arctic coast. IFR, eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range. Prince William Sound here, Kenai Peninsula, all the way down across the Panhandle. And in the afternoon, we see some improvement. Pretty good here off the coast of southeast Alaska into the Gulf. And IFR holding, though, most of the day over most areas there. IFR in the Wrangell Mountains Coast Range, Talkeetnas, on up to the Alaska Range, southwestward to the Aleutian Range, northeast Bristol Bay, And back out to the Pribilofs, another swath here across the southwest interior from the Bering Strait. And some IFR, looks like mostly off the Arctic coast. Marginal VFR, most areas of the Aleutians and Bering Sea, except for the Fox Islands. And then they go back into the VFR, marginal VFR on Wednesday morning, but VFR breaking out St. Lawrence Island down along the southwest coast, Bristol Bay. And then some IFR. Well, starting out VFR Kodiak, then IFR here, northern Kuskokwim Valley, Alaska Range, right in expanding in the central interior all the way up to the North Slope. And then 40-mile country, mostly VFR. Panhandle IFR over toward the eastern border, otherwise marginal. And for the afternoon, that starts to dissipate a little bit, the IFR zone, but the marginal stuff holding pretty good there. But VFR, most of the Gulf of Alaska here, Kodiak Island, Cook Inlet, on up into most of the Susitna Valley, and then you get marginal into the interior. Big area IFR, Kobuk, Koyukuk Valley, up across the Brooks Range of the Arctic coast, VFR St. Lawrence Island, southwest coast, marginal out west. And for the passes, Anaktuvik, marginal VFR, but VFR on the north entrance, same pattern for Adigan, VFR north side and marginal through the pass into the south. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR, and Rainy, IFR. Looks like windy will be mostly IFR. And Isabel, same forecast, IFR. Mintasta, though, marginal VFR here, but VFR on the northern entrance. And for Tanita, IFR to start and gradually improving, becoming marginal by later in the afternoon, possibly VFR later in the afternoon. I'll go marginal at this point. And for Portage, same trend, starting out with the lowest conditions early on, becoming marginal VFR into the afternoon, so slow improvement there, but not for Chilkoot and White. IFR start to finish. Freezing levels, again, strong southerly flow, shifting eastward a little bit here, so that's pulling the warm air up into the eastern Gulf of Alaska across the Panhandle, 2 to 8,000 feet there across the southeast coast and into the eastern Gulf, 2,000 feet up to the Kenai Peninsula yet, but colder air poised to come in eastward. As you can see, surface dropping south of the central and western Aleutians here, right up to near the Pribilofs and into Kuskokwim Bay. And icing, not much to speak of out here, nothing significant out west, maybe a little swath here across the Alaska Peninsula, mostly falls past Cold Bay, King Cove, losing it as you head northeast. And then the heavier icing will be here across the Panhandle, areas of considerable moderate of about 6,000 feet south, scattering out, becoming less of a threat here across southern Alaska, but still pretty good chance maybe seeing some light rime or mixed icing above about 3,000 feet. Jet stream, next storm coming northward here, the upper reflection right there over the Yukon Delta, midday, early afternoon tomorrow. And strongest jet now, southwesterlies, right into the southeast coast there at about 120 knots, otherwise well south of the state or the area of Alaska, and 60 knotters across the Aleutians. Taking a look at 9,000 feet. Again, this low tracking northward to about this position early afternoon tomorrow. Strong winds across southern Alaska, south central Alaska, 55 knots here, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, and 45 knots crossing the Alaska Range into the central interior, but much lighter along the Arctic coast. 40 to 60 knot southwesterlies there for the Panhandle, and 35 to 50 knot winds, eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula, swinging around Kodiak Island. 3,000 feet, low center coming northward, 55 knot winds, south-southwest and across Cook Inlet, and up to 50 knots over the Panhandle, 35 knots up into the eastern interior, northwest, west-northwest, strongest across the Fox Islands at 50 knots. And taking a look at turbulence, Unalaska Island, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak, all of southern Alaska here, we'll see moderate chop, possible isolated severe for small aircraft. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
We have cleaned over 1,500 miles of shoreline now.
Basically, it comes down to just human muscle. I mean, we use chainsaws and knives.
We find stuff from like Russia and China and Korea, Vietnam, Malaysia. It really doesn't matter where it comes from. We all just have to clean it out.
Our goal right now in the next 10 or 11 days before the end of this year is just to see how much we can collect before we get to remove it.
What you see on the beach is a fraction of what's out there. You can pretty much break it down into 3 or 4 things. Water bottles, a lot of water bottles, styrofoam, fishing nets, fishing buoys. And that's 99% of what you find on the beach. Basically just go along with chainsaws and muscle and get the garbage, put it in sacks, and then from there we haul it up above the log jam so it's out of any heavy surf or winter storms if it's going to stay there for the year, and put it in super sacks. So yeah, we just progressively work down the coast, just day in and day out.
We have like daily goals for ourselves that, like, if we're working at a pretty good rate, we like to keep on pace with about, like, I don't know, about 20 to 25 super sacks a day. So this is pile 102, and in this pile right now we have 2 super sacks and 1 set of buoys. June 23rd here, this is what we've done today. We're up to 25 super sacks on the day, and I think for now we'll call it and just keep cleaning until tomorrow.
My name is Hannah, and I represent a organization in Japan called Japan Environmental Action Network. With over 20 people working together to clean up the beach, this is amazing. Like, we all need to work together to, clean up the beach as much as possible. So like every single time I go back to Japan, I talk to the fishermen, and the fishermen's like, it's a joke, but they're like, if you find any buoy with my logo, you gotta bring it back, and it's like, always looking out for that stuff.
The crew's awesome. I mean, we're all skiers or snowboarders, and we're all friends. I mean, we're all good friends. My dad started it. He's the man behind the desk. He makes the ball roll for sure. He works hard. He doesn't give up easy, which is good.
This stuff is uplifted quite a ways during the earthquake. Well, I think my bag's about full already. Yeah. I'm gonna take a quick look back in here, see what else is back here. The thing about marine debris is it's kind of a hidden problem. Unless you're out there, especially on these remote beaches that are so heavily impacted, people don't see it. I remember probably a good 20 years ago, I was out on the outside of Montague Island, flew out there, and I was just utterly astounded by all the garbage out there. You walk out there and you wade through this stuff and you go, this isn't right, this shouldn't happen.
I think a lot of it's just awareness. I mean, I've been boating out here for a long time, and I wasn't even aware of how extensive the marine debris problem is out here, but it's a consumer world out there for sure. I mean, I don't know where people's values are, I guess, but mine is you got to kind of have a little bit of respect for the environment, and considering we live in it, especially in Alaska. I mean, a lot of people like the outdoors and like to be part of the outdoors. That's why they live here, and it's they don't necessarily want to see it trashed.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis here. Not a lot different from what we had yesterday, and forecast is a couple of those storms moving northward. That's going to advance this area, eastern Bering, especially into Bristol Bay, northward. This will melt somewhat, and then actually advance out here to the west over the next several days with the colder northerly winds back out through there. So moving on to the coastal water forecasts for tomorrow, Tuesday. Full gales here along the southeast coast with that next front coming in. 40 knots, southeast 40 on the north coast there. Gale force winds again for Lynn Canal, south 35 knots, southeast 35 for Stevens Passage, with storm force gusts there in the forecast, 50 knots to go along with it. And then good gales for Clarence Strait, south 40, seas 9 feet. Lighter winds the next day down to 15 knots there for Clarence Strait, and the coast decrease in the winds here. Still a pretty stiff breeze, 30 knots out of the southwest on the central coast, 25 on the south coast, north coast west at 30. Lynn Canal, south 25, gusts 40, 5-foot seas, south 25, 5-foot seas for Stevens Passage. And for Prince William Sound, southeast 40 knots tomorrow, seas 9 feet, south 45 for the eastern North Gulf Coast, and 35 knot winds on the west side. Barren Island, south 40, 28-foot seas, south 40 for Kamishak Bay as well with 18-foot seas. Gale force southeasterly south of the Forelands, and east 30 knots north of the Forelands. And then for the next day, dropping off to southwest at 20 here, northern Cook Inlet. Otherwise, westerly gales, southern Cook Inlet, Kamishak Bay, and the Barrens at 35 knots. And west 40 here for the western North Gulf Coast, southwest 35 over toward Middleton Island. Lighter winds in store for Prince William Sound, west 15, seas 3 feet. Kodiak Island tomorrow, southwest 45 knots, even Shelikof Strait, 19 to 27-foot seas, 45 knot winds from the southwest to Castle Cape. Then you get into the storms. Westerlies 50 knots, Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, and Bering Sea side of the peninsula, west 35 knots here, including Bristol Bay with 8-foot seas. Following day, Wednesday, west 25 for Bristol Bay, seas at 9 feet. Southwest 25 for the Alaska Peninsula with 11-foot seas, and westerlies 30 knots for the greater Kodiak Island area. And for the Fox Islands tomorrow, Unalaska Island, we'll go with a storm warning, west-northwest 50 knots, seas 20 to 28 feet. Westerlies at 45 as you get over toward Unmak Island, Nikolsky, and then dropping off to 25 to 30 knots out of the west for Adak and Atka. And from Amchitka Island on out to Attu, west at 20. Following day, pick those up to about 25 knots there in that same zone out of the west, and then lighter winds here for Adak and Atka, west-southwest 20 knots. Southwest winds, mostly 20 knots. South of Unalaska Island, about 25 knots. So definitely lighter winds here with 9 to 12-foot seas. And for the southwest coast, northwest, 25 knots. Brisk wind advisories north of Nunivak Island, small craft south of it, northwest 25 for the St. Matthew Island, 30 knot winds for the Perbilofs, north 20 St. Lawrence Island, Norton Sound. Those turn west 20 Norton Sound on Wednesday, west 10, really getting light here for St. Lawrence Island. South-southwest 15 to 20 along the coast, northeast 15 for the Perbilofs, and southwest 25 for St. Matthew Island. Up along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, we've got east winds in the forecast of 15 knots, kicking up to about 20 on the central and west side, and then lighter and variable winds from Cape Thompson all the way down to Wales. Outlook for Wednesday, west 15, Wales up to Cape Beaufort, and northeast at 10 for the western Arctic coast. Otherwise, northeast 20 knots, central and east side over to Demarcation Point. They take more of an easterly direction. For tonight, again, the next third of the series here, rolling up into Bristol Bay, some more heavy precipitation, mostly in the form of rain along the coast, increasing winds again, especially the Alaska Range into Prince William Sound, south central Alaska, all the way into the Panhandle. Rain increases once again. The former low now really weakens and pulls up to the north there, for even there improving conditions, a break in between, colder air coming down across the Bering Sea, and looks like snow and blowing snow developing or drifting snow here in the southwest interior, and snowfall levels back down to sea level here for the eastern Aleutians on up into the interior. Another day like today for the Panhandle. And then the outlook for Wednesday, colder across much of the interior, especially behind this cold front, and drier over the southeast coast with snow showers pretty widespread across the Bering Sea and Aleutians.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.